Hello, and welcome to our Tech Basics overview. This topic is actually kind of boring, so we're going to keep it quick and go into further depth in separate specific videos, which you can watch for whichever sections you need to have a bit more information on. Also, you can probably skip over this if you already have your website and email running well and have control over your domain. With that said, we'll keep it quick and let's dive in. So, in looking at the tech basics that you need to have in place, the first thing we're going to have a look at is domains and registrars. Basically, the domain is very simple. It's just the online address for your website. So apple.com, google.com would be good examples. And basically, you register your domain at a registrar. And GoDaddy is actually the best known registrar out there, although there are multiple registrars. You can also get hosting through your registrar, or you can often get registration through your host, but you don't need to, and it's absolutely not always a good idea to keep those together, as we'll discuss a bit further in the more in-depth video. The big thing is you'll want to register your domain at a well-known vendor, you'll want to set it to auto-renew, and you'll want to store your registrar login password somewhere safe. I can't share how many times we've heard sad stories of somebody's registration expiring. They can't even access the registrar, have no way of renewing it, and it just turns into a major hassle. The other thing is that you should make sure that you do your own domain registration and not typically you don't want to have your web developer or your IT provider do that because you want control over it. That's another thing. If those people go missing, you can't access your domain if you don't have control over it. In terms of hosting, in super simple terms, hosting is the computer that's accessible to the internet that your website sits on. And all hosts are not created equal, so you do want to do some work and research on this front. And you definitely don't want to be on shared hosting, which is where multiple websites might be sharing the same small space on a single host. With most websites, it's really easy to transfer between hosts if you're on a bad one. And the only time that gets challenging is if your email is also done through the host, which isn't ideal. And we'll discuss that a bit further too. And some website platforms actually don't need an independent host. So platforms like Squarespace or Shopify, neither of them need a host because they actually have hosting built into their solution. Taking it a quick step further, email. Email is really simple. One thing is you do really want a branded email with your domain. Setting that up is really simple, but you probably want to use these days a cloud-based email provider like Google Workspace or Zoho, or two examples. Microsoft 365 is another one a lot of people use. And in some cases, we'll talk about this further, but in some cases you also need email authentication if your email is sending emails to users, like when they sign up, or sending them to you on behalf of your domain. Again, we'll talk about that further in greater depth in a different video. And DNS is also important to know what that is. That's your domain name system. And basically when somebody types your domain into a browser, it gets looked up through your DNS, and then the DNS points the domain and your browser to the numerical address where your site's located. That's called an IP address. And it sounds a bit complicated, but it's really quite simple. You can use a DNS service that's separate from your registrar, but usually as long as the DNS has the features you need, then doing it where your domain registration is located is a great way to go. And then in your DNS, you basically tell the internet where your site is located, as well as telling the internet where your email is located. DNS can be kind of daunting to set up, but makes sense once you dig in a bit and get through all the technical jargon. And typically, whoever's setting up your website or your email, if you're not doing it yourself, can set it up on your behalf. And again, we'll get deeper into that in an in-depth video. And finally, website platforms. Once upon a time, website platforms and websites were all coded by developers. It was a real custom job. These days, the platforms that are out there make it ridiculously simpler and more cost-effective. And basically, developers are still relevant, but these days, most people, especially in the sort of service businesses that we work with, most people are way better off to use a website platform that allows non-developers to assemble sites. And currently, our favorite platforms are WordPress, Squarespace, and Shopify. And we'll talk about those more and the reasons why those are our favorites in the website platforms lesson. Hope you enjoyed this video and it was helpful and didn't put you to sleep too badly. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next time.